Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's video, I'm going to be giving a recap of 20 can't miss episodes from this channel. As this channel gets closer to releasing its 400th video, I thought it'd be wise to go back and make some recap videos outlining some of the videos we've released in the past. If you're curious about any of the topics and videos that I'm mentioning on today's video, please feel free to check out the channel in the link in the video description. Here is 20 can't miss episodes that we've released on the Property Management 101 channel. Number 1, month-to-months. How do you manage your month-to-months? How do you recognize the risks they have as far as manage them, how often you generate offers for them? What is the cap of month-to-months do you allow your particular property? Maybe your cap in your slower time of the year is a different number than it is during the busier time of the year. Knowing this is really helpful for you and your teams to have established. Number 2, expirations. How do you manage your expirations? What are months that you allot more to expire in compared to months you may allow less to expire in just due to the seasonality of your property? Does your team know this? What kind of process do you have that sets up this where it is a situation where you ensure that you're not overexposed in any given months where you don't want to have too many expirations? Number 3, we discussed in a video 12 metrics that every property manager should be tracking. This is a two-part series that we go over metrics that you should be monitoring as a property manager. Number 4, employee reviews. Do you have a process when it comes to employee reviews and a schedule for these? Do you bring data to those employee reviews? Do you set and establish and review goals? These are all the things you want to consider when it comes to performing those employee reviews. Number 5, work order follow-ups. Do you have a process? Do you have a preferred method? These are things that are really important when it comes to those work order follow-ups. And if you're not doing these, I would highly recommend performing work order follow-ups at your property. Number 6, make-readies. Do you have a process for turning units? Do you have a schedule? Is everyone on your team aware of that schedule? This is going to be something that's going to be really important to decrease that vacancy period and decrease that vacancy loss. Building trust with your team. So maybe you're a new property manager or you're new to that particular property or company. And so you really want to make sure you're building trust with the rest of the team. How do you go about doing that? You want to make sure you're transparent in your goals, you're setting a good example, and you're delegating. Daily routine tips is the next episode that I'd highly recommend checking out if you have not already. We actually break this up into 2 separate parts, and we also break it up into multifamily property managers and single family management property managers, as these 2 managers are going to have a much different day-to-day when it comes to their job and their duties. So I felt that it was worthwhile to kind of break this up into 2 individual parts just to make sure we're covering really what applies to each side of the industry. The 9th topic that you need to check out if you haven't checked out already is our videos on the P's of property management. So if you've been around property management, you know that oftentimes when you're troubleshooting an asset or portfolio of maybe what's going on or how we can improve, you really want to first identify which of the P's of property management it is. And that could be your people, that could be your product, that could be your price, that could be your promotion, or it could be your processes. So I actually released a multi-part series on this, going over of each one and things you want to ask when it comes to asking the question of which of the P's are we struggling with. Number 10, property visits. So as a regional manager, you often have to go to your properties, and sometimes these can be scattered around a great distance. So you may have to fly there, you may have to drive a far distance. How you allocate your time while you're there is going to be really, really important. You want to make sure you have agenda that's communicated with the team, and this is going to be really important to establish that that visit is run really efficiently and you're focusing on that particular asset that you're visiting at that time. Number 11, I go into 3 products that every single property manager should have. These will help out when there's an emergency at the property or just day-to-day activities that go on at your particular property. In that video, I actually also provide links to those products if you're curious on purchasing them yourselves. Number 12. So I released 6 episodes about books that are great for property managers. These go over things as far as how to handle difficult people, how to be a better leader, and I'd highly recommend checking out these 6 videos if you love reading and if you love learning and improving your craft. These are great videos to watch if that's the case. Unit inspections. So how often are you performing unit inspections? What's the frequency? Do you have a process for these? What are you covering? What's your agenda each time you're performing an inspection? How and what ways are you communicating to your residents as far as how often, what's the frequency? These are all going to be things that are going to be really important as far as how you conduct your unit inspections. Number 14, air filters. Is your team aware of what sizes that you have at your property? Is the landlord of your particular property responsible for replacing them, or is the tenant responsible for replacing them? This is typically determined really by the asset type. Oftentimes in single family management, the resident is responsible for replacing these air filters, while in the multifamily space, typically the landlord's responsible for replacing these air filters. But you want to make sure of what sizes you have at your property. You want to make sure that you have a process when you're conducting inspections. Are you changing these? Have you budgeted for air filters? Are you having different air filters for different floor plans as far as different sizes? So these are all the things that you want to consider when it comes to your air filter changing process and who is responsible for what, and your entire team is aware of this so everyone's on the same page. Number 15, hiring. So when it comes to hiring is always a tough subject in the industry. It's never a perfect science, so you really want to make sure you have a consistent practice when it comes to this. Two of the practices we talk about in this video is getting multiple opinions and hiring on desire, not experience. Oftentimes I see that leadership overvalues experience and undervalues desire. Move-in tips. So have you collected all the residents' paperwork? Have you conducted those final walks? Have you collected all their fees and rent amounts that are due before they move in? This is going to be really important so you have a solid move-in process and you don't get into a tricky situation where the resident is moving in and the unit's not fully turned, or you've not collected all their fees. Move-out tips. So I actually have a couple different videos when it comes to move-out tips. I have move-out tips for a resident, what you should be doing between the time a resident is scheduled to move out and when they do move out, so the notice period. And I've also provided a video on some general tips when it comes to having and conducting your move-outs. This is referring to walking them quickly, what's your schedule for move-outs, and putting the unit on the market as quickly as possible. Number 18. I've actually released a few videos when it comes to common mistakes. What are some things you could avoid in your role that have been done already that are common in that particular role as a first timer or maybe as a seasoned employee in that particular role? These are things you want to avoid when it comes to common mistakes for that particular role. We cover positions like regional manager, porter, leasing agent, and property manager. Number 19, pool management. Because if you have a pull at your particular asset or assets, do you have a process for these as far as cleaning, opening, closing, if there's an emergency? These are all things you really want to make sure your entire staff is aware of. Also, do you have a process for ensuring that you're always up to date and legally compliant from permits, licensing, and anything else you may need? Also, when it comes to your pool, what and how do you communicate to your residents when it's closing, or if it's closed unexpectedly, or this season when it's opened? These are all things you want to take in consideration when it comes to your pool management. If you haven't got a chance to check out all these videos we talked about today, I would highly recommend going to the channel, checking these topics out if you're curious on learning some additional best practices with each one of them. But back to number 20, the last thing we're going to talk about as far as can't miss episodes is vendor management. Often see that a property success really has determined as far as how they manage their vendors. Sometimes they can be overcharged, or the standard of their vendors is much lower than the standard that's needed at the property. So you want to make sure you have good vendor management. You always want to inspect what you expect. You always want to reset those expectations with those vendors each year to ensure that they continue at the standard you need them to perform at. And last but not least, you want to set that good example of expectations from the start. So these are some things to highly consider when it comes to how you manage your vendors. Now for today's video, we just gave a brief watered down overview of each one of these episodes and subjects when it comes to what we recap today. If any of these subjects interest you, feel free to check out the channel on all these subjects on Property Management 101. If you liked this video today and you learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. And if you've not already connected to our LinkedIn and our Instagram page, this is a great way to find out about video releases and industry news. I hope you enjoyed today's must-see 20 videos that we've released on Property Management 101. Thank you for all your support, and as always, happy leasing.